explosion in the US, with 10 people having been killed, 3 of those just last year. More people were killed in one bomb set off at the Brussels airport in March 2016, let alone the thousands of other jihadist attacks that have happened around the globe since 9/11. The next criticism to pointing out these behaviors by Islamic extremists would be to say, well, yes, well, maybe most terrorists are Muslim, but not all Muslims are terrorists. Yes, of course, many nominal Muslims are themselves ignorant of the most violent aspects of Islam and want nothing more than to live a peaceful life in the West. As individuals, Muslims are free to dismiss the parts of Islam they find distasteful via the guise of context. But the same question can be easily turned around. If Islam is a religion of peace, then why is it the only one that consistently produces religiously motivated terrorist attacks? Why are there literally thousands of Muslims that are ready to strap a suicide bomb to their body and walk into crowds of innocent people, scream Allahu Akbar, God is greater, and murder indiscriminately? Muslims and their apologists can believe whatever they want about Islam, but this does not change what Islam, a documented ideology, has to say about itself. Moreover, there are very troubling signs coming out of the already massive established Muslim communities in the West. For example, 20% of British Muslims sympathize with 7/7 bombers, 16% of Muslims in Belgium state terrorism is acceptable, 26% of younger Muslims in America, 35% in Britain, 42% in France, 22% in Germany, and 29% of young Muslims in Spain believe suicide bombings are justified. And 45% of British Muslims agree that clerics preaching violence against the West represent mainstream Islam. Muslim Americans who identify more strongly with their religion are 3 times more likely to feel that suicide bombings are justified. 19% of Muslim Americans say that violence is justified in order to make Sharia the law in the United States. Following the November 2015 attacks in Paris, 1 in 4 young Muslims in Britain say they sympathize with those who fight for ISIS. And an astonishing 2/3 of British Muslims would not turn a terrorist into police. And it goes on and on and on and on. Yes, of course, for most of the statistics cited, the majority of Muslims do not agree with an extremist interpretation of Islam. However, sizable minorities do, and they make up millions of people. And in most countries, the 2nd and 3rd generation of Muslims are more radicalized than their parents. And with the flow of Muslims ramping up into the West by the millions, social, criminal, and cultural problems are set to explode, literally and figuratively. And for the imposition of Sharia, no motion, debate, or approval by a bicameral parliament is necessary. Sharia has already arrived.
Children across Britain are being exploited for sex by organised gangs in growing numbers.
Muslim patrols are again active in London, with vigilantes trying to impose Islamic ideals on the local population. And while
Do you feel that you are British?
I identify myself as Muslim. If I was born in a stable, I'm not going to be a horse.
We are Muslim Patrol. We are in North London. We are in South London, East London, and West London. We command good, and we forbid evil. Islam is here in London. Mr. David Cameron, Mr. Police Officer, whether you like it or not.
A woman in a short skirt is abused.
We don't care if you're appalled at all.
It's Great Britain.
We don't care. It's not so Great Britain.
A man the patrol thinks is gay is insulted.
Get out of here quicker then. You're dirty, mate. You're gay, mate. Get out of here, mate.
tonight of what it calls the appalling abuse of at least 1,400 children over a period of 16 years, from 1997 to 2013. It details children being raped, trafficked, beaten, and sometimes doused in petrol. The inquiry says almost all the perpetrators were of Pakistani heritage.
ويبحثون عن إخصاب عندنا سنخصبهم وسوف ننزل وسوف ننجب منهم لأننا سوف نفتح بلادهم رغم أنوفكم يا أيها Ja, Johanna Amerikan! Ja, Johan Palacion! Ja, Johan! Apelian!
In the wake of the 2015 Paris attacks, the Molenbeek municipality in Brussels was described as a Muslim no-go area, where gang violence and Islamic radicalization has fed off the neighborhood's festering resentment of authority. In 2015, Belgium's Home Affairs Minister said that the government did not have control of the situation in Molenbeek and that terrorist links to the district were a gigantic problem. The neighborhood has found notoriety as a hotbed of violent jihadist ideology. In Sweden, the rape capital of Europe, the small town of Östersund, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, has called off Earth Hour this year. Earth Hour, which started in 2007 as a lights off event to raise awareness about climate change. But turning off the lights in this tiny town is too dangerous for Swedish women. Why is that? Well, authorities have lost control of the city and women are being sexually assaulted in alarming numbers. While police won't comment on the perpetrators, as is the case in most Western countries, all of the victims claim their rapists were not native Swedes. Victims ranged from adults to young girls, and attackers remain on the loose. Women all over formerly peaceful Sweden are now being told to walk in groups or with a chaperone, and not to walk alone for fear of gang rape. In Birmingham, Sharia courts operate in the shadow of British law, offering rough justice for Muslim women. But ironically, there are fears that if Sharia courts were to be closed down, they would just appear underground, making it harder for them to be regulated. It's said that there are some 85 such courts in Britain, but the actual number is unknown. A central German regional railway is launching a special women and children-only area for their trains on their Leipzig and Chemnitz route. The compartment will also be next to the onboard office of the train guard or ticket inspector, and the company said the local proximity to the customer service representative was chosen deliberately. This is again in response to the massive surge in sexual assaults on women and children attributed to the Islamic migrants pouring into the country. Also in Germany, schools have banned revealing blouses, shorts, and skirts in the name of modesty to help prevent migrants from sexually assaulting school children. And even in the United States of America, the leading cable news channel CNN, like most other controlled media outlets, has been forced through fear of violence to uphold Sharia law and its prohibition on any likeness of Muhammad being publicly displayed. Just after the Charlie Hebdo massacre in again Paris, CNN blurred images of the magazine that had the cartoon depictions of Muhammad. But CNN was not alone, as virtually all controlled media outlets did exactly the same thing, following the injunctions of Sharia, and censored the cartoons. And you can find example after example after example of creeping Sharia in the West, from non-halal food bans to Islamic street patrols, honor killings, gender-segregated swimming pools,